He kept 100 mistresses, hidden in luxury apartments across Beijing, a modern emperor with his own private harem. He owned 100 mansions, scattered like trophies across China. And when investigators finally broke into his safes, they found 3 tons of cash, stacked so high it had to be hauled away by truck. This was Lai Xiaomin, the man they called China's god of wealth. He stole billions, built an empire of women and money, and believed he was untouchable. But greed has a price. And when the party finally turned on him, China's god of wealth was dragged to his execution. This is the rise and fall of China's greediest tycoon. Before we get to the mistresses, the mansions, and the billions, we need to understand where this man came from. Because Lai Xiaomin's hunger for wealth didn't start in Beijing boardrooms. It started in a mountain village where there was never enough to eat. Born in 1962, he was the youngest of 5 children. His father hauled a wooden cart, delivering goods for pennies. His mother mended clothes for neighbors, sewing buttons by candlelight just to scrape together an extra meal. For years, the family lived on scraps. Lai grew up malnourished, small for his age, and determined never to feel that kind of hunger again. To him, money wasn't luxury, it was survival. That's why, when his parents repeated the same phrase every night, "Studying can change your fate," Lai listened. At 17, he topped the county exam and became the first student from his village to enter university. At Jiangxi University of Finance and Economics, he lived like a ghost. His entire scholarship barely covered 3 bowls of noodles a day. He skipped meals, borrowed books, and counted every coin. It was a life of deprivation, but also a rehearsal. A boy who learned how to starve without complaint was learning something else too: how to endure, how to wait, and how to climb. By 1983, that climb had begun. The People's Bank of China came recruiting, and the boy from a forgotten village walked straight into the beating heart of the nation's financial system. At first, he seemed cautious, disciplined, almost invisible. But to party leaders hungry for young talent, he was the perfect new face. Promotions followed. By his mid-20s, he was already a deputy director. By his 40s, a rising star in China's powerful banking regulator. The village boy who once went hungry was now dining with China's elite. But Lai hadn't forgotten the lesson poverty burned into him. Money was survival. And when Beijing handed him the keys to a financial empire, survival turned into something far more dangerous: greed. By 2009, Beijing faced a financial nightmare. The country's banks were drowning in billions of bad loans. Debts so toxic, they threatened to poison the system. And the party needed a savior.
China's central bank has released data showing that bank loans made in January amounted to 1.62 trillion yuan, more than double.
They turned to Lai Xiaomin. That year, he was appointed president of China Hoarding Asset Management, one of 4 giant firms created to clean up the mess. His mission was simple: take on the bad debts no one else wanted, stabilize the markets, and prove that the state could fix what capitalism had broken. And at first, Lai played the role perfectly. He appeared on television as a tireless workhorse, expanding Hoarding into stocks, real estate, and finance. Under his watch, the company's assets skyrocketed, from just 15 billion yuan to nearly 1.9 trillion in less than a decade. The media celebrated him as a financial hero. Banker magazine named him one of the top 10 financial figures of the year. To outsiders, he looked like the man who could do no wrong. But inside Hoarding, a different picture was forming. Lai had engineered something far more dangerous than a turnaround. He had quietly made himself indispensable. Chairman, party secretary, legal representative. 3 roles, 1 man. In theory, every big decision at a state-owned firm required a collective vote. In practice, Hoarding was Lai's kingdom. Every promotion, every contract, every flow of capital, it all went through him. Colleagues called him the god of wealth. And for years, no one dared challenge the title. Because Lai wasn't just managing money anymore, He was playing God with the entire financial system. And with absolute power in his hands, Lai indulged his most dangerous obsession. Not money, but women. Lai Xiaomin had money. He had power. But what he craved most was control. And in China, that control often began with women. Inside Hoarding's Beijing offices, Lai had a reputation. When he set his eyes on a woman, she rarely said no. If charm didn't work, there were other methods. Promises of promotion, piles of cash, and sometimes pressure that felt closer to threats. According to investigators, Lai kept more than 100 mistresses. Some installed in Hoarding as executives, others hidden away in luxury apartments across the city. He treated them like a private harem, his own modern court of concubines. Reports claimed he numbered them to keep track. Businessmen eager to win his favor sent him actresses. For Lai, spending a night with a celebrity was as casual as ordering takeout. The scale was staggering. Entire buildings became hideouts for women. These weren't homes, they were traps, stocked with gifts and waiting for his visits. And with his mistresses came loyalty. Executives who owed their careers to him became his insiders, protecting his secrets and tightening his grip on Hoarding. But there was a darker irony. For a man who once starved as a child, Lai now consumed endlessly. Women became another asset class, another currency to collect. But unlike money, women could talk. And in time, they would help expose the man who thought himself untouchable. Lai Xiaomin didn't just collect women. He collected mansions. Across Beijing, Tianjin, and Shenzhen, investigators later counted more than 100 properties tied to him. Some were luxury villas. Others were high-rise penthouses. Many sat empty. Not homes, but trophies of power. And inside those properties, Lai hoarded his true obsession: cash. In one apartment, agents pried open steel doors to find safes so tightly packed with banknotes they had to be hauled away in trucks. Nearly 3 tons of money, stacked floor to ceiling. So much cash it had begun to rot. Elsewhere, there were gold bars, Swiss watches, priceless paintings, antiques still wrapped in bubble plastic. A private kingdom of wealth hidden in plain sight. Every major deal came with a price. Businessmen funneled bribes through shell companies, then bought him villas. Promotions were traded like currency. For a decade, Lai turned a state-owned rescue fund into his personal ATM. On paper, Hoarding was thriving. In reality, it was hollowed out from within. A kingdom ruled not by the party, but by one man. But kingdoms built on cash are fragile. And once the secrets began to leak, the empire collapsed overnight. By 2018, the whispers around Hoarding had grown too loud to ignore. Billions were vanishing. Projects looked more like favors than investments. And everywhere Lai went, there were women. The party sent in its most feared investigators, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection. What they uncovered was staggering: 1.79 billion yuan in bribes, nearly 280 million US dollars. It was the largest corruption case in modern Chinese history. Executives promoted through loyalty, businessmen buying influence, and a state-owned bank run like a personal fiefdom. Lai Xiaomin, once hailed as a savior of China's financial system, was now exposed as its greatest parasite. And Beijing made sure the entire nation saw it. On state television, Lai appeared pale and broken, confessing in a documentary that felt less like justice and more like theater. The god of wealth was paraded as a warning. No matter how high you climb, the party can bring you to your knees. For years, he seemed untouchable. But in China, when corruption reaches this scale, there's only one ending. Not prison, not exile, death. The trial was swift. The evidence overwhelming. Prosecutors called Lai's crimes extraordinarily severe. The court said his greed had inflicted incalculable damage on China's financial system. The verdict: death. On January 29, 2021, Lai Xiaomin was taken to Tianjin. Once the god of wealth, he was now a condemned man, strapped to a gurney, executed by lethal injection. To his family, it was the end of a father, a husband, a son from a poor village. To the party, it was a message. No one is untouchable, not even a man with 100 mistresses, 100 mansions, and safes overflowing with cash. The boy who once skipped meals to survive had become the greediest tycoon in China's history. And in the end, he was dragged to his execution, a modern emperor, cut down by the empire he thought he controlled. And if you thought this scandal was wild, wait until you see how a self-proclaimed first lady stole from an entire nation. That story is coming soon. But for now, go watch how Zhou Lo, the world's most wanted billionaire, vanished into China's protection. That story is right here. I'm John, and this is Silk Street, where we expose the scandals of power, betrayal, and collapse.